Presence of a quorum. I'll be acting as chair of the select board as our regular chair, Kristen, is unavailable tonight. As we always do, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Yes, Sam. The first thing I'm going to address is the public input from residents on non-agenda items. I'm going to limit it to two minutes per speaker. If anyone would like to talk to the board now for about 2 minutes. I don't see anybody and nobody here. Give them a little bit of time. Nope. Okay, we'll go to the next one. We have a presentation tonight, and I'd like to ask the police chiefs to step up and...
You can sit there.
You can sit.
Yeah,
you can sit. It's easier.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
John Shevchik, Chief of Police here in Boxborough. As many of you know, the last couple years we've been bringing a lot of new officers forward. We've sent a few to the academy, which has been phenomenal. But growing and ensuring we have a really excellent police department, we also want to make sure our supervisors get terrific training as well. And in the May town meeting, we brought forward a warrant article, and that warrant article passed, and it was allowing a supervisor to attend a 3-week command level police executive research forum, a 3-week course. So I really want to first thank the select board, thank the FinCom, and certainly thank the community for supporting that warrant article. And the lieutenant went to the training in June and spent pretty much the whole month of June at this excellent training right here in Boston that people come from all over the country to attend. And he's here today to talk a little bit about it and share and bring back to the community of what he learned and what he can bring back to Boxborough. Lieutenant, there you are.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep, we can.
Yeah.
And we can see you too.
All right, awesome. Okay, thank you very much for giving me this time to talk about PERF, the Police Executive Research Forum. As the chief said, I do want to thank all of you and obviously the residents for allowing me to attend the training. In June, I was able to attend the Police Executive Research Forum Senior Management Institute for Police. It's a national recognized 3-week executive leadership program. It's held in Boston. We stayed at Boston University. The program was taught by faculty from Harvard, Dartmouth, MIT, and Johns Hopkins. We've basically focused a lot on leadership, organizational change, negotiation, and decision-making under pressure. Like the chief mentioned, I had the opportunity to learn alongside law enforcement leaders from all over the country and Canada, kind of from California, Wisconsin, Texas, Florida, Maryland, New York, and many other states. But we really exchanged a lot of some of the best practices, and I was able to bring back some of these strategies and share what we've done here in Boxborough. And then we can hopefully strengthen our partnerships here in the town of Boxborough with our community.
Great. Steve, thank you much, Chief.
Great. Thank you. And again, from Lieutenant, from myself, we really thank the townspeople for supporting this warrant article.
Yep.
I have one question for you.
I was going to get to you. I wasn't going to ignore you.
No.
Yeah.
No. I just didn't want him to okay, we're done. So, is there one thing that you're planning on implementing here after your training there?
There was so much different things that we learned. In 3 weeks, I mean, they really crammed a lot down. But one of them is just adaptive leadership. Being able to quickly adjust to different situations and strategies to adjust with keeping our core mission here, public safety and community trust. Keep that front and center. It's one of the big things we're going to bring back, again, strategic communication. These are the things that we're able to bring back that I hope I will be using here in Boxborough, alongside with the chief, and keep the community partnership strong and keep getting it stronger.
Great. I just have one, and Steve, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second with the chief sitting here in front of me. Is there anything you saw or you heard that we're doing wrong right now?
It's not a matter of doing wrong. We can always improve on everything we're doing. Communication, they really pushed communication, was the big thing for us. And I think that we can definitely improve on. Again, communicating our message to the community, let them know what we're doing. I know we got different programs, and I'm not going to jump into it the next segment what the chief has, but it's those little programs like that, and it's, I say little, it's actually a big program, but it's a communication, let the community know what we're doing, not only just the community, but our own interdepartmental as well too. That was a big thing that they really pushed on us, making sure that there's a clear line of communication between the police department, our employees, and of course senior management at town level, and our residents.
Great, thank you, Lieutenant. Anything, question from the board? Sam? No? Russ? And any question? Nope. Mike?
Yeah,
before Mike starts, I'd like to introduce, this is Michael Johns. You might not recognize him, Sophie. Can you zoom in on his face? He now has a clean-shaven face. He no longer has the beard. I've never seen him like this, so I wanted to make sure everybody recognized him without the beard. Go right ahead, Mike.
All righty, and bright red for everyone to see. I just wanted to comment that I'm glad they put so much emphasis on adaptive leadership, and that's one of the core takeaways that you got from the extensive training you got, because to me it's one thing, to come out of the police academy and go to the annual training that you get and learn tactics, but it's a whole other thing to adapt on the fly and to whatever rolls out, on the street or in the community or in the world, and to be able to flex to that. And I think as a command level staff member, I think that's really important. So I'm glad they stressed that, and I'm glad that's something you've taken away from it and you're going to bring back to share with the sergeants and the other leaders in the police department. So thank you for participating. I'm glad that was a takeaway for you.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate it. Congratulations on completing the course.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you all, and again, the residents for giving me this opportunity. It was greatly, greatly appreciated.
Sure. Thanks, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Great.
Good.
We're up again. So next on the agenda as well, so this is wonderful. It's always great when we can bring new programs to the community and tell the community what we're doing, kind of like that was just alluded to by the lieutenant. But it's really special when we can bring a program that I think really can have, and does have, and certainly now that we're joining Communities for Restorative Justice, can have such a tremendous impact on an individual. This program, and we have here today Erin Freeborn, the Executive Director of Communities for Restorative Justice, and she's going to talk about it in much more detail. However, I just look at it from really a holistic point of view, is anything we can do, even if it's 1 or 2 people a year, keep them out of the criminal justice system and into a diversionary program. We know that statistically and anecdotally, once you get into that program, into the criminal justice system, it's problematic, short-term and long-term. So anything we can do to help one resident, one individual, whether a resident or a visitor to the community, or any time we can help somebody avoid the criminal justice program through a a successful diversionary program, I think it's wonderful. So that's why we are partnering up and rejoining Communities for Restorative Justice. I want to also have to give a quick shout out to Ann McNeese, who was one of the first people I met here in town and told me about this program, how we were in it a few years back. And it was something that over the last couple of years we wanted to rejoin, and starting on July 1, we did. So no further ado, Erin Freeburn is the Executive Director. We're so happy to have her here tonight to talk a little bit more about the program.
Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. All right, I feel like I'm back in court. All right, thank you so much. I also have to say thank you to Ann for bringing the community back together with C4RJ. As many of you might remember, Boxborough was a member of C4RJ a number of years ago, and we're really excited to have this relationship back. So tonight I am going to give a short presentation explaining what restorative justice is, who C4RJ is, and why that might matter or how people could get involved. So we have a few slides to add some color. All right, excellent. Excellent. So this presentation is called Law Enforcement Through Restorative Justice, and that's because restorative justice really can be a tool and a lens that the police department uses to address incidents within the community. It is a shift, as we'll talk about in a few moments, but it is something that when adopted can become a lens that you see everything through. So what is restorative justice? If you look in the criminal code in Massachusetts, there was a statute that was adopted in 2018 with the criminal justice reform package. And it acknowledged that restorative justice is a legitimate resolution for criminal cases. Anywhere from pre-arraignment, which would be a referral from the police department, all the way through a court case through the disposition. And so there are lots of different ways that partners across the state are utilizing restorative justice. So the basic definition of restorative justice in statute is that you're bringing together the members who were impacted by an incident. It is a voluntary process, and it is one in which you're focusing on the harms and the needs and the obligations that were created by a criminal incident. We bring together that responsible party once they've accepted responsibility with not only that impacted party or the victim, but also members of the community so that they can accept responsibility for what they've done. They can be held accountable and supported as they make repair to the people they've harmed and the community abroad. As I mentioned earlier, this does require a paradigm shift. And you know, when I was in law school, or maybe when you were in the academy, this was the approach, right? What law was broken? So what is that criminal charge that's bringing us here today? Who did it? Because if you don't have a suspect, there's actually not a case that can move forward. And then, what should we do to them? And that is the punishment aspect that we often are seeking in court, or the sentence. And you can boil down our entire legal system to these 3 points if you take it very simply. However, we're asking all of you to be creative and shift. We're not changing the outcome. The outcome is justice and repair. We're not shifting the people who are in the conversation. We're all still here, and the chief's still the chief. But we're starting with that victim. Now we're starting by asking them, once we've identified the victim, what are your needs? What do you need to be made whole? What do you need to feel safe again? And then we shift to that responsible party and we talk to them about what they need to do to make repair. So really shifting when we're asking that question of who's obliged to meet those needs. So a little bit about C4RJ, the organization. Our organization is a little nonprofit that started in the year 2000. So we're now about 25 years old, and we were founded in Concord, so not too far away. And we're an organization that has a small number of staff members, but we are mighty because of the number of community volunteers who work with us across the state. We have over 150 volunteers, and at this point in time, our referring partners are more than 24 police departments across the state and 3 district attorneys' offices who formally partner with C4RJ. Those district attorneys' offices are the Northwestern District Attorney's Office, Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, and then, of course, Middlesex District Attorney's Office. If you look at the map on the next slide, that shows you some of the local partners that are in this region. That way you can look to see who your neighbors are who are involved with this work. The bold colors on this map identify departments that are member police departments, which means that they do pay annual dues. But more importantly, it means that the chief has dedicated this as a priority for their department, and it allows them to refer cases directly to C4RJ. In Middlesex County, you'll notice there are communities that have a little lighter shade to them. Those are communities where we can work with people through the district attorney's office. And so those would be cases that would come to us later down the legal system pipeline.
Is there any distinction between the colors? I mean, red versus yellow?
Yes, and those are connected to our regional teams. The way that we do this work, and I'll come back around to that, is by dividing up regions and making teams of volunteers who meet monthly to talk about the cases that they're working on. And so the gold team works on that catchment area, the green team works on that green catchment area, etc. Yeah, thank you. So you might be wondering, how do we do this work? Our core model is one in which, we receive the referral from the police department. They do their entire investigation as if the case is proceeding to court. And at that juncture, where they would file the case with court, they send it over to us. And then we do work through an intake process to talk to the parties on both sides. The police report is our starting document, and we start with those named. But then we have conversations to really understand who else was impacted by this incident and who else should we bring into the conversation about how to make things right again. We do all that preparation to really gear up for this opening circle. That is a really beautiful moment, because that is the time where we are bringing all of the parties together in a circle conversation to talk about not only what happened, but what needs were created and what repair needs to take place. We create an agreement during that opening circle, and then that agreement is what we follow through the life of the case. The core to C4RJ's model is that after that opening circle, each responsible party is paired up with 2 volunteer facilitators. So these are your community volunteers. And those individuals are working together on a weekly basis for months. Sometimes 8, 12 weeks, they're working on reflective exercises, decision-making exercises. And as you can imagine, after the circle, the most important question for that responsible party is, what did you hear the victims say? What did you hear them say they need? What did you hear in that conversation that was new? And now how do we reflect on bringing that into making repair? And when all of the work is complete from that agreement phase, the entire group from the opening circle comes back together in the closing circle. And that's an opportunity where everyone gets to hear from the responsible party, not only about what they did, but also what they learned along the way. And we do have a police officer in our circles, because this is a partnership start to finish, and their perspective is very important when we're talking about not only the incident, but when we're talking about making repair to the community and how do we move forward in a way that makes everyone feel safe and whole again. So you might be wondering what types of crimes this will work for, and often when I give a training to police officers, they're looking for a list of charges. They want to know, will you take assault and battery, but not assault and battery with a dangerous weapon? And I like to ask people to kind of step back from that, because it's not so much based on the charges, it's based on the parties. We can work with people who are interested in doing this process and having these conversations. You'll see on the diagram the type of charges that we worked with in fiscal year 24, and it's important to note that 37% of the clients referred were facing at least 1 felony charge. I think it's so important to remind people that this is not just for juveniles, this is not just for first-time offenders. It really can be most impactful when there's been more serious harm. And we often, year after year after year, see assault and batteries, larcenies, and breaking and entering cases as some of our top referring cases. Not that we see many of those around here. However, those are common trends year after year, because if you think about them, at their heart, they are an infraction between people, an infraction between people in a community that have torn the social fabric of how our community is supposed to interact and be together. Next slide. We earlier mentioned the regional teams. So these make up our communities of care. I like to have this diagram that shows lots of little dots on the map because it takes a village to respond and keep our communities the way that we would like them to be. And last year, volunteers worked over 11,000 hours on cases overall. And it's just a testament to the way that we can all make a difference if we chip in. Sometimes people are wondering how they can make a difference these days or where they can get involved to change someone's life or to change the discord happening in the community. And this is one way that people can make a difference. You'll see that the responsible parties we worked with last year were anywhere from 12 to 68 years old, and almost 70% of those referrals were adults. The average age was about 25 years old. So I do have to say a thank you to some volunteers who are in this community and who were waiting for Boxborough to come back into the fold. Certainly Ann McNeese, who we've already mentioned, but also Ann Seymour and Nancy Settle-Murphy. And so I name those folks because I encourage you, if you're in the community, to reach out to them to get more information about what it might mean to volunteer with C4RJ and what this work can really be like. So there are many ways that you can get involved to support this work. You can go to our website to learn more about us. We will have a table with some volunteers at the Freebie Market Day in September. That's September 13th, so look for us there. We are getting ready to celebrate our 25th anniversary, so follow us on social media or on our website. There'll be an event in Boston on October 23rd to celebrate that. And of course, we're always looking for people to help support our nonprofit, either with your time or your gifts or your resources. And there are many ways that you can do that to help support this work, because there are police department dues, but then there are also ways that we rely on members in our community to keep this work happening and available. And then finally, if you're interested in being a volunteer, there's a website on that slide and then a QR code that you can scan as well. And my understanding is that we'll make this available on the Chiefs network, so that we'll make it so that people can find out how to get involved and what it means to be a volunteer as you're working on these cases and responding to cases in your community. Because so often, no matter what the crime is that people are facing, the common question that the impacted parties have or that the victims have in a case is why? Why me? And they have questions about, did I do something to make myself more vulnerable than my neighbor? Are you gonna come back again? Was I targeted? And you are not able to get those answers through the courtroom process, but they are able to have these conversations and get answers in a restorative process. And so if people would like to be engaged in this work or in supporting this work, we welcome you. So thank you for having me tonight. Thank you, Chief, for refreshing the partnership, and thank you, Select Board, for supporting your department in this work.
Great, thank you very much. Hey, Sam, any questions? Wes?
I'm just glad we're doing this again. Thank you.
You're here.
I do have a few questions, sorry.
Excellent.
I know Wes is okay.
No,
he
I
will.
don't.
Less than 10, okay?
What do you love most about Boxborough?
Well, I went over to the craft food hall and they had really good tater tots.
See?
I'll say
They
that.
do have good.
Right.
You mentioned that we were part of it before, and then we
Yep.
got dropped. What happened? Does anybody know?
I do.
How did we?
Yes.
I can say that different departments over time sometimes have to reevaluate their budgets, or sometimes we'll see departments that are members for a while maybe step back and then come back. So I'm just really happy that Boxborough is back.
So, I'll follow up. So you just mentioned, Chief, was there a cost to joining this, and if so, how much?
There is a cost. It's based on per town. Bigger towns pay more. We pay a little bit less, being a smaller town. It's
Yep.
a $3,000 dues. It was put into the operating budget this
Yep.
past year.
Okay.
I believe a few years before I got here, the one year there was some budget cuts in a few programs. Worthy programs just had to get cut. So
Yeah.
one of my initiatives was bring them back over time, and that's why we brought it back and put it in the budget last year.
Great, so it's in the budget, it's $3,000 for the year's
For the year.
worth, and then if we're able to continue, it'll be on an annual basis.
Correct.
Great, thank you. I do have one question, and I don't know who's better to answer it. You mentioned about talking to the victims and talking to the suspect as well, and I'm more concerned about the suspect. Is there any privacy violations are happening here? I mean, as far as, because normally it's the police and I'll call it the two people involved, but then now you're getting yourself involved. So there's no privacy issues as far as a violation of privacy rights or anything like that, Chief or Dane?
Do you want to speak to privacy and I can talk to confidentiality?
Yeah, well, I think one thing to know is and Aaron can talk more about this, both parties have to agree to be part of this process. So if you're talking about the
Right, because
victim,
that was my question. I mean, who's going to tell them they have this right? Exactly, yeah.
we would refer it. Well, it's more logistical if you want to take it.
And we're getting ready also as part of the membership dues and part of the process of onboarding. We're getting ready to do a police training with the command staff coming up. We're getting ready to really work through the policies for rolling this out in Boxborough. And I think it's important to realize that the police are doing their investigation as they always would.
Right.
They're doing their full investigation. We are not a fact-finding organization, and once the case comes to us, there should not be any investigation beyond that point. This is a confidential process that happens outside of the courtroom, and so it is protected. There's confidentiality provisions in the statute that conversations that are had in a restorative process cannot come back into the courtroom. And we take confidentiality, privacy, protection, and safety very seriously. And because it's a voluntary process, we would never reach out to parties until they received notice. We have a joint referral packet that goes out for a case, and it indicates that the case is being referred by the police department. People can reach out to the police department. And also, we welcome people if they ever want to talk to defense attorneys or consult attorneys at all. They're more than welcome to do that. And oftentimes, we'll have initial phone calls with people who are just trying to understand the process.
Great, thank you.
But you mentioned about the agreement, right? Is it legally bound then?
Yes, this process is respected. So when the C4RJ process completes, we submit a memo back to the police department and the criminal case closes. Pre-arraignment, pre-charge, never ever has to go to court. For cases that are in the court process, similar thing. We would just report back to the prosecutor's office or the defense attorney that it was complete and the case would be closed.
Oh, okay. So is there any changes to how, say, the responsible party will be affected by this in a positive way? Is there, how does it work?
Yes. For referrals that come from the police department, those cases are sent pre-arraignment. They're not even touching the courthouse.
Okay.
And so that means that we are able to have conversations about responsibility and what happened, but the person is not going to receive that criminal record.
Okay.
Their case would not be arraigned in court.
What is your success rate, what is the percentage of folks that kind of in each of the communities that you serve go through your process?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me that I skipped one of my notes. So our process is actually very successful. We've only returned less than 5% of cases over the last year. Once they get to circle, they have a very high likelihood of success because we have a multi-layered support process throughout that we can bring people back on track. Also, recidivism is much lower with the restorative process. So if you look at the statistics from the legal system, the Bureau of Justice Statistics actually has a 1-year recidivism rate of 45%. And at 3 years, they report a 68% recidivism rate, people reoffending. With C4RJ's process, we looked at our cases over the lifetime of our organization. The average has been 16%, and over the last 3 years, it has been 11%. So a big difference from the legal process, really because you have two people sitting face to face, talking about who they are, telling their stories, and really putting a face with that experience. So when a person goes out and they might be faced with a similar choice in the future, they choose not to make a similar act because they're thinking of the person and the stories and the lessons that they learned.
One last question. Do you follow after the case gets closed? Do you follow those victims or the responsible party?
We don't really.
Okay.
We're trying to track longer-term success metrics more efficiently, but for a long time we just promised people that when they were done with our program, this chapter was closed.
Okay.
And so we have some stories where people have come back and reported much later down the line. And we hear anecdotally from our police partners often that they'll see people around the community and there will be a lot of change that they recognize.
Any other questions? Yeah, Mike.
I have one. Where the parties are coming together face to face to go through this process, are there some type of crimes where they're not eligible to go through this sort of a restorative justice? I'm kind of assuming there are.
Well, so there are a few crimes that are ineligible under the statute to be referred before the end of a criminal case. But restorative justice actually can be used in all types of situations. Like some people are doing the work with people who are incarcerated to really focus on very serious harms. So I think it's more important to think about where the case is coming from in the legal system. It's most likely that those very serious cases would end up in the legal system anyways. They will go through their court process and may or may not have restorative justice as some portion of the disposition. For cases coming from police departments, we will, it's easy to think of arrests end up in court very quickly, and so those are their own basket. But everything short of that, the summonsable offenses, can be considered by the police department to see whether or not it's an appropriate case. Usually cases that are not referred are cases where there's significant mental health needs as the primary need, or substance needs, or domestic violence or sexual assault. Usually those go a different path, but almost everything else that's summonsable and has two identified people involved can be considered.
Excellent, thank you.
So I would think a domestic violence that occurs, the arrest is still going to get made, no change. Maybe a long-term investigation where somebody, property damage to someone's home, neighborly dispute and someone damaged their house when they weren't there. At a long-term investigation, you have both the victim and the suspect. That's a summons. Instead of sending the summons, we would first make a referral. And again, both parties have to want to participate, but that's kind of where we would do it outside of the court, but we could take that track from the PD directly to CR4J.
Excellent, thank you.
Do you guys also work with any other nonprofit or agencies to like make referral? Like if somebody needed help, say the responsible party needed help, like to
Like community-based referrals?
Yeah.
Our primary referral source are the police because we're focused on crimes, but restorative practices can be used in many different ways throughout schools and communities and even families. So I'm sure there are organizations out there that are doing this type of work, but our work is focused on those cases coming from the police department. Every once in a while we'll refer out if someone has a particular need, and we can find a community partner that we could refer out to.
So that's what I wanted to know.
That
You
would
do make the
definitely
referral
work.
if there is one available.
Yes, yes, and that's why having conversations as we partner with the new community is so important to learn what options are out there. And our police partners are usually really good at connecting us to those resources.
Any questions from the audience? Comments? Anyone on Zoom want to add a comment or a question? Nope. Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Aaron, for coming in. Appreciate it, and hopefully.
Thank you so much.
And we hope this program really takes off and helps moving forward.
Absolutely. If it helps 1-2 individuals a year, I think it's well worth it.
Super. That'd be great. Thank you. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
The next item we're going to do is some appointments and some reappointments. I'm not sure the people are here. If they are, I will try to recognize you and ask you to comment. Diane Freeman is going to be going forward as the Boxborough Housing Board Representative to the Boxborough Affordable Housing Trust. Diane, are you here?
No, nobody's here.
No one's here. Okay. So I will make the motions. Let's see. I move to appoint Diane Freeman as the Boxborough Housing Board Representative to the Boxborough Affordable Housing Trust for a term expiring June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstained? That passes 4-0. The next one we will have is with John, and I apologize, John, it's Stupin, I think is how I have it, but
It's actually Joe as well.
I'm sorry?
Joe Stolpen.
Joe Stolpen.
Stolpen, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tony, for being here. And Joe was going to be the Finance Committee representative to the Boxborough Affordable Housing Trust as well. Tony, do you want to say anything? Nope.
It's fine, man.
Okay, fine. I move to appoint John Stupin as the Finance Committee representative to the Boxborough Affordable Housing Trust for a term expiring June 30th, 2027. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And anyone abstaining? That is 4-0 as well. The next one is for James Doherty, who is our interim town assessor. Mike, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yes, so we have signed a contract for 7 weeks for an interim assessor. This is someone who is a retired assessor. He retired about 5 years ago, so he's got a lot of experience, and he's going to be helping us in this interim period. There is a chance we may sign an extension on the end of his contract into the fall, but for now he's going to be with us at least through September 17th. For him to do the work that we need him to do, we need to appoint him during this period, and we're looking to appoint him through the end of December or until he's replaced by a permanent assessor. He is not going to be our permanent assessor. He is retired. And then just, I can also comment on the next one if you'd like at the same time.
Sure, good.
In the same manner that Jim needs access to the Department of Local Services to be able to do the work for the Assessor's Department, Kanye Lim also works in the Assessor's Department, and she's going to need access, so that we have stability and sustainability even after Jim leaves and we bring someone else on. So for her to have access through the DLS gateway, they've said that she needs to be appointed. We don't normally appoint all employees, but both of them do need to be appointed for that reason.
I'm sorry, because I was just going to say, so we didn't have Kanye appointed before when we had our full-time assessor for that reason, or why didn't?
Correct. Only the assessor
okay.
had access to DLS, and we may want, I think we're probably going to want to keep both people in the department in the future with access to DLS. We had to it was kind of a hiccup when we had no one with access for several weeks, and this is going to overcome that sort of gap in the future.
Why did we, in the first place, is there like a cost associated with it, or?
There's not.
I think it's more of a statute.
Oh, is that a statute?
Yeah. So I think it's the state says that we have to, they only grant access, DLS, because they're signing it, permission to the appointed assessor.
Okay.
Right, but her question is, why didn't we have two
Yeah.
in the past?
Oh, is that your question, or why do we?
Yeah,
have to appoint?
So in the past, we could have had two, But
That's what I asked, right?
It was decided within the department that it was just gonna be the department head. But I think going forward, we'd like to have, for continuity's sake,
Yeah.
you know, both people
Need a
working in the
backup
department
person.
to have
Makes a lot of
full
sense.
access.
Sam, anything else?
I would say that makes sense.
Good. Anybody else have a question on Zoom? Nope. Okay, I move to, I move to appoint James Doherty as the interim town assessor for a term expiring December 31st, 2025, or until a permanent appointment is made. Can I have a second?
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? That is passing 4-0 as well. I move to appoint Kanye Lim as the assessor administrative assistant for a term ending June 30th, 2028. Can I have a second, please?
Second?
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? That is again 4-0. The next one we have is unfortunately a resignation. And I apologize up front if I mispronounce your name. I have it as, how I knew it was Aisha Childer, and she is leaving the public celebration and ceremony committee. And she's not here, so we can't ask why. Anyone else want to
Her
come?
thing just said she
Go ahead.
became too busy with work.
Oh,
That was
great.
her.
Okay, just too busy with work. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you
Friend
very,
of them.
thank you so much. I appreciate everything you've done for the rest and for the town. Thank you. Thanks, Wes, for letting us know. I move to accept the resignation of Aisha Childer from the Public Celebrations and Ceremony Committee with thanks for her service to the town. Can I have a second?
I seconded.
Sorry, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Anyone abstained? That again, 4-0. Okay, we are moving along. The next one is for new business. We're going to have a discussion, consideration of establishing a board of assessors and the proposed changes to financial policy for the assessor. Mike, why don't you lead us off, and then I know we have a question coming up from the FinCom. Go ahead.
Sure. So Tony Newton, who's the chair of the Finance Committee, is here, and he would like to make a presentation. He has discussed it with the Finance Committee, I think in their last 2 meetings, and the Finance Committee wanted him to come and make a presentation to the Select Board, because any sort of, if it is the intention of the town to make a change, so right now, it's a board of one. It would be the chief assessor who is making the decisions and making all those recommended actions. And a change would be to have either an appointed or an elected board, and that authority lies within the select board to bring something of that nature in front of town meeting for that sort of a jurisdictional change. And Tony has done some research. He's also gotten a little bit of input from our interim chief assessor, Jim Doherty, and he'd like to make a presentation for you to digest and possibly discuss and maybe even vote. Actually, I don't know if voting is on here. Just for a discussion for this evening.
And that's fine. Tony, I'll give you 1 sec. Or either one. Do we have to notify the state if we choose to go to a board of assessors? Or I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but how does that work?
It would, but it wouldn't be until an action is actually taken. So that isn't something that would have to happen at this point. This is just the start of a discussion.
Okay.
But certainly because the members of a board of assessors would have certain roles and responsibilities, just like a chief assessor would. But Tony has done the research. He has all the information, and he's given his PowerPoint presentation to Kelly to put up whenever you're ready for him.
I am ready, Tony. It's all
Sure,
yours.
yeah. So the background to this is that some questions were asked at the annual town meeting by a citizen on a couple of topics. The assessor at the time came back to town meeting and to address those questions, which he didn't do very satisfactorily. So FinCom asked her to come in and discuss those questions with us. And again, we didn't really get satisfactory answers. And with follow-up questions, ultimately she went off sick and disappeared.
Okay.
So that was our sort of sense of something's not quite right here. And as we sort of looked into this and these questions that were raised, I think what it's highlighted is that our governance process is actually not optimum for a town this size. So that's what we're coming to here. So if you put up the first slide, Kelly, that would be helpful. And go to the first slide on the deck there. Okay, so the two questions that were asked at town meeting, and we've been trying to drill into, is how much money is being taken for revaluation purposes, and this is this money we put in as warrant articles each year. We put in 30,000 each year as a warrant article. It's been our tradition here in town, we built up quite a reserve, actually, quite a sort of a surplus of money, because the amount of money being spent is actually less than that. So that's question number one: is what do we do about that? Issue number two is the overlay reserve. So the overlay reserve is a reserve set aside for abatements of taxes. And we have to have a certain amount of money in reserve to cover potential abatements that might come in. That overlay reserve can be decided by the assessor or the Board of Assessors without going to town meeting or without going to FinCom or anything like that. So they just take the money off the top, really, before we do our budgeting process. We don't control that. That amount of money that's in overlay reserve now is about $1.5 million, and at least on the face of it, we think it's too high. Again, I think a lot of these questions we've got now, we will need to sort of refer back to the interim assessor to get his expert opinion on. But that was our question that we had initially. Was these two things about money for inspections, evaluations, and money for the overlay reserve. So what this has come to is just a little preamble. What we're going to say here. What I'm going to say is that we think that one of the answers going forward to improve our governance is to have a board of assessors, rather than having a one-person board of assessors, which is what we have right now. Have a separate, independent, probably three-person board who would have oversight of the professional assessor. And in fact, most towns have this process in place. We're actually the exception. There's about 7 towns in the state who have a single person board of assessors out of 351 towns. We're one of those, so we're sort of like the outlier. And most of the others actually are like very small towns in western Massachusetts. So yeah, that's where we are.
Tony, will the assessor be part, if we go, would the assessor be part of the Board of Assessors?
No, they'll be separate. So there'll be a board of assessors, and then who are volunteers from town, and then there'll be the assessor who's a professional paid by town.
And the assessor would report to the Board of Assessors? Not
really report. Really that board would have oversight. So the idea would be the assessor would make his or her judgment on this abatement should be paid or not paid. Right. And then the Board of Assessors would actually look at that and vote on it and either say, yes, we agree with you, or for some reason may not. So it's like another layer of scrutiny on all of these questions, and I think will strengthen our position actually. Okay. So that's but that's sort of jumping ahead a little bit. So let's look at the issue number one, which is the appropriations. So we currently appropriate $30,000 a year by warrant article. Because it's a warrant article, at the end of the year, any money left over is kept in the books as finances. And we've got a situation now where we've actually got a sort of reserve there of $120,000. So this money we should be taxed on, and it's sitting there doing nothing basically. So what we can do here, I think, and this is up to us as a town, we can decide to pause that funding. In fact, we could do all of these things actually. We could pause the funding for the future for 2 or 3 years. We could, in the future, we could manage this as an operational budget line item, which would mean at the end of the year, any money that's left over would come back into free cash. Yeah. And also, the money that's there now, this $120,000, we could decide, I think, with a town meeting warrant, to bring that back into free cash, because they're warrant articles, so we can't touch it without that. But we have a new warrant article saying we want to return, say, 100,000 back into free cash. So these are all things we can do, I think, going forward at full town meeting or whatever. And also I think we should update our financial policy.
While Tony's getting a drink, to your question about the, the relationship with the Board of Assessors and the Chief Assessor, it's a little bit similar to the planning board and the town planner or our land use director. So the assessor would work with the Board of Assessors, but administratively would still report through the town administrator. So it's very similar in that regard. But just like the town planner does the day-to-day planning, but then brings things, to each meeting for the planning board to make decisions, it'll be somewhat similar with the assessors.
So would and I'm jumping ahead, I apologize. Would the relationship with the FinCom change?
I don't think so, no. The FinCom really, we obviously look at the money and the finances, but we don't control the assessor. That's a separate function. We're really only raising this because it came to FinCom as a financial question.
Right, so would the FinCom ask the question of the board or ask the question of the assessor?
I think from now, we're just suggesting that we should change our governance in the town, and so that's a select board decision, I think.
Okay. All
right.
So
we don't want to go beyond that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that.
Okay. Go ahead.
So next slide, Kelly. This just gives you the numbers in background. So the history here is that in 2022 we took $120,000, and at that point I think there was a backlog of inspections to be done. But that money actually has still not been fully spent out, and we've continued to take additional money. We took $60,000 in 24. We took at annual town meeting and at full town meeting, $30,000 each time, and then we took $30,000 each year for 25 and 26. So we've been continuing to fill up the coffers with money and not spend it. So that was our question. Looking at what's been used there, we spent about $30,000 a year roughly. 24 was a bigger number, and talking to Jim Doherty today, he feels that was a revaluation or a certification year, so the costs become a bit higher those years. But other than that, it's about $30,000 a year is what we spend, and then the year after it's less because you've just been through this recertification process, so there's less cost. Yeah. That's his interpretation of that. Okay. So what I think we can do is going forward, we can probably budget that number based on what we expect to see for the following year's inspection needs. And in fact, he said, there's a contract now with the company that do this. They're called Patriot, and he knows what that number is, and we can fill in that number there, and we'll know at the beginning of the year what the number should be. So this should be easily budgetable and kept very tight, I think.
Great. So it's not that the 30,000 is too much every year. It's just that there's too much in reserve right now.
Exactly, yeah. So eventually we'll get back to 30,000 a year, I think, or something like that.
I mean, it looks like, 2 out of 4 years you basically hit it, and one went over and one went under, but it seems to be more or less 30,000
Exactly. There's just this bolus at the beginning, which we haven't really spent down yet.
But there's no reason to have 120K sitting there.
No.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And then, Tony, on that same note about expenditures, Michael, so this is only for the abatement. This doesn't have to do with...
This is for revaluation inspections. This is the money we pay to Patriot, who are a company who come in and every year they inspect a certain number of homes in the town and revalue them, basically.
Right. So this has nothing to do with, because I know there's
nothing
been...
to do with abatements at all.
Yeah, and then the other question, I know there's been a couple of times we've had questions about a software, whether the assessor's software.
Talk about software.
So this wouldn't pay for the assessor's software?
I think that's to be clear. I think it's all rolled in here, but I think there's some questions still to be asked here. I think
that's kind of my question.
There's some unknowns here about software and whether we needed to at some point change to new software or stuff like that, and I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
And we can never really get a straight answer to that. So maybe with a new assessor on board, they can look back into the history and figure out what happened there. But we don't know.
So this money would be, if we had the right balance, this money would be used in addition to going out, this money would be used to purchase a new software. This is where the money would come from.
Yeah, I'm not sure we need new software though at this stage.
I'm not saying we do, but I just want to make sure I understand what this
Yes,
could be used for.
it could be, I think, yeah. Okay, so next slide, Kelly. So the next issue is the overlay reserve. So we currently have $1.5 million roughly in overlay reserve, which we add to every year. Again, it's the assessor's decision how much they take for that money. So there's no vote at town meeting, there's no vote anywhere. It's just their right to take that. We on average we use about $250,000 a year, and you can actually a board of assessors can declare that there is a surplus in that fund and return some of it back to free cash. But that's up to the board of assessors to do that.
Okay.
So in the next slide, Kelly, this just shows you where we stand as a town compared to other towns. So if you look at the last 5 years, we've taken on average 1.86% of our levy into this overlay reserve fund. The average for all towns over 5 years is 0.85%.
Whoa.
So we're a significant outlier of the average, and we don't know why this was done, and we've had no visibility into this. So until we looked into it, we didn't even realise this. We were out of whack.
So, Tony, who's looking into this? Is Jim the new assessor? Are you with you, or just
I
the
spoke to
FinCom?
Jim this afternoon, and yes, that's one of his tasks. I think would be to look at this and see, well, is this number we have now 1.5? Is it just right, or is it too much?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, obviously the risk is if it's too low, and then you have a big abatement comes in, and you run out of money, you have to go back to town meeting and say, oh, we need another $500,000 to pay off this abatement or whatever. So you don't want to be too low on that. But on the other hand, if it's too much, this money's sitting there which has been taxed and not being used.
So I think it was initially done because that's when Cisco's property sold, and then they were concerned about how the change in value, or not valuation, but whatever it's like their
Appraisals?
what?
The appraisals?
Yeah, whatever the appraisal would be, and then
Oh, the
how they pay it,
revaluation.
because it's owner owned, like if it's owner owned, or if it's I forget. There's two ways to value them. So it's like owner owned is like when Cisco was there, they paid us a lot of money, but then when no longer the people owning it there, they pay less.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why we had the influx,
Yeah.
because there were a lot of other businesses in like 2019
Maybe,
and
so
2020.
next slide, actually, Kelly might help illustrate that. So this top chart here shows you actual abatements by fiscal year. So 21, there's a very high number.
That's
Yeah.
860.
That's a Cisco stuff you're talking about, I think.
That's
So
860.
Cisco, and then there were some other places. So there are lawyers that just come in and say, we'll file this abatement for you
Yeah.
and take it to court. We just want 20% of whatever we get.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that happened aggressively as a lot of companies were
Yeah.
leaving Boxborough.
Yeah.
So there's a risk. There's a risk of that happening, and you have to be sort of aware of what's coming down the pike there. But again, if you look at the out years there, it's much lower numbers that have been paid out. I think we need to be aware of what may happen in the next 1 or 2 years from other properties in town. But I still think that 1.5 million to me looks like a very high number, and it's actually built over the course of the last 5 years. You look at the bottom line there. We built that reserve up quite significantly over several years. So, again, to me it seems too high. But I'm not the expert, but I think now with an assessor on board, we can get more view on that and work to it.
Like Tony mentioned, one of the tasks in the scope of work for Jim is to look at what are the liabilities out there, because we have to cover all those,
Right.
and then let us know what's the overlay surplus. And then, because we would like to, if we've got 200 or 300,000 in surplus, we need to make that available next year, because we know we're coming into a tough year, and we don't want to have it sitting there if we don't have a liability equal to that amount.
And one of the questions is, what are the true town liabilities? So we've got these abatements out there and other smaller things like exemptions and stuff like that. But what, if you read the DLS website, they also count uncollected taxes as a liability, which is really not the case, I don't think, because taxes always get paid in the end. And our town record of getting taxes paid is actually pretty good. There's not much outstanding unpaid. So if we're holding money back for uncollected taxes of say $1 million, that's really an unnecessary holdback, I think. Again, I think we should get the assessor's view on that about what we should do.
Right, and as we saw at your last FinCom meeting, we didn't have a lot outstanding from past year's taxes.
No,
it was just collecting through the 4 quarters of towards the end of FY25. So there really wasn't a big liability there.
Yeah.
So that was my question. When you say, as a town, we do a pretty good job of collecting unpaid taxes, that's like there's data on that. We, as a
we have a financial dashboard for that actually.
So to Sam's question, or to Mike, do we have old stuff that people just aren't paying that we have to bring to court, or is it really current, as Mike just alluded to?
It trickles in actually, and then eventually they will go to tax title, and we'll get it that way. But typically things are coming in pretty good actually. The percentage of unpaid taxes is very low in this town, I think.
Okay.
Relative to other towns, or relative
to... I don't know. I've got good data on that, but it seems to me at a glance that we have a pretty low numbers. Because I was concerned about it, which is why I asked for the numbers originally to come to us, and it looks pretty good to me.
Okay.
So Tony, you have more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So next slide, Kelly. So the proposal is that we move from a one-person board of assessors to a board of assessors with a professional assessor. This is the verbiage from the state website that essentially tells you what a board of assessors does in a town. So it's all the things that we've just talked about in terms of valuations, deciding what the overlay account should look like, and things like that. It's interesting looking back at the history of this. We used to have a board of assessors in town until 1985, I believe, yes. And it was abolished by the town meeting. And I think that was a mistake at the time. I think what had happened was there was a board of assessors who were purely volunteers who did all of this work. If you look at the town population from 1960 to 70, the town went from 7,500 people to 3,000 people. So to 750 to 1,500 people in 10 years, it doubled. And from 1970 to 1980, it doubled again to 3,000 people. So you can imagine a volunteer board of assessors in a rapidly growing town becoming overwhelmed by the workload and the decision making around this, and throwing up their hands and saying we need a professional assessor, which is the right decision, I think. But they probably should have kept the board of assessors alongside that, as most towns did. And it seems that most towns in the state did that. They have a board of assessors, and then they have a professional assessor that works with the board of assessors. Right. So that's what that's what we're proposing that the select board look at, is this idea of establishing a board of assessors, getting some volunteers to do that, setting up a charter or whatever for that, and I'm assuming it would be a town meeting article to actually establish that.
Right. So basically it would be up to the select board to determine the particulars, like would it be a three-member board or a 5-member board?
Right. Yeah. Appointed or elected. It could be either.
Is it a 1-year term or is it a 3-year term?
All that sort of stuff. Yeah. I mean, the sort of people you want on the board, I think, would be.
That was my next question. What kind of people are you looking to volunteer?
People with real estate experience. You pretty want realtors or people with real estate experience who understand property valuation and issues around property that they can advise on. And there's also a training requirement. They need to be trained. There's a state training, which is like a 10-module online training that people have to do. But they have a year to do that. Well, once they join the board, they've got a year to complete this training.
So are they certified, or do they have to pass the test?
They have to pass the test. Yeah, these are sort of self-assessed modules, I believe, where you sort of do a module online and then you answer the questions afterwards. Okay. So there is some work to it. and some commitment to it. But I think it would be good for the town to have that.
Great to talk. Sam,
Yep.
do you have something? You look like you got a question. No?
Tony, I had a couple of questions. One is, you said like there was a board before, right?
Yeah.
Do we know, like, was it an appointed board back then, and how
I
many
don't know.
members?
I don't
You don't
know.
have
I don't
those
know.
details,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the overlay reserve that we looked at, it is a high number. Is that number accurate? We don't know at this
Oh,
point.
that's accurate. Yeah.
It is
Oh,
accurate?
yeah.
It is
yeah,
accurate, okay. So
Yeah.
all that is taxed money,
Yeah.
and we are taxing again on
Yeah.
top of that.
Yeah.
Same thing with the other one too.
Yeah.
Like the 30,000
Yeah.
that we are adding it's
Exactly.
already taxed and there is a reserve, and we are taxing more.
Exactly. Yeah. And hopefully a board of assessors might have prevented that sort of situation taking place, because we've really been flying a little bit blind here with a single assessor who, frankly, it was quite hard to communicate with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the issue.
Yeah.
Next slide, Kelly. So a couple of small things. I think one thing we need to do is, alongside this, revise our financial policy to give a bit more clarity about what the overlay reserve fund is and what we want it to be. Again, this is just a suggested wording. We can work on this together, Select Board, FinCom, and come to something with input from the interim assessor, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And next slide, Kelly. I think we need a policy for cyclical revaluation. So to state that this will be money that we take in the budget process that could be either a warrant article or an operating budget item, but we'll take into account what funds we already have before we decide how much money we'll put into that line for the budget.
I like the idea of like operating budget, right?
There you
Yeah.
go.
Because that
Yeah.
you can see it, how much we spend, what is left, and then
Right.
you can decide right then and there.
Right, yeah,
I think
yeah,
it would be
yeah.
a better option. Yeah.
And in fact, Jim Doherty said that's what most towns do. He thinks doing warrant articles is he said
Yeah.
old-fashioned to do it that way.
Yeah.
Next slide, I think it's the last slide here. So there are some outstanding questions here. I think we would need some more clarity on what the funds we use for in the 2021-25 time period. I think it'd be good to get some sort of clarity on that. I'm not too concerned about misuse of funds or anything like that, but I think we need to know what was used. And I think we need to know where we stand in terms of inspections and revaluations, because if we don't stay up to date on our revaluations, we will fall foul of the state in terms of our certification, and we can't raise taxes. So this is very critical that we make sure we're actually compliant along. I'm not too concerned about that. I think we're okay, but we need to look at it.
Okay, right, because, yeah.
That's my last slide, so that's fine.
Mike, do we know if we are current with all the evals and?
Yes,
Resolutions.
so we were certified, and, I made some initial calls, and then Jim, since he's been here, has made some calls, so we're all up to date with, we have had a consultant that we've been working with, and they're very reputable. They've been doing the evaluations, the
Yeah.
appraisals, yeah. So that stuff is all up to date, and Jim's going through that. So we have no sign that anything is out of order
Okay.
or anything like
Because
that.
I think that was what
Yeah.
initiated this
Yeah.
whole thing, right? Like
Right.
we were backlogged
Yeah.
and didn't do it for a while, so we tried to catch up and.
Right.
Right.
And all indications are that we are caught up.
Yeah.
And now it's about making sure we get the right funding, for the two things that Tony's talking about, the overlay and the revals. Tony mentioned the financial policy. So a couple of years ago, I think it was about 2 years ago, we established the town's financial policies. And when we did that, the select board and the finance committee and the finance team and administration team talked about it. And we all felt that it was important to get buy-in from all the people who are working on these. So we had the chair of the select board, the chair of the finance committee, and then the finance director, the treasurer, the assessor, and the town administrator all sign these policies. I think one thing that would change is, some discussion about, are these the right policy changes? And I think they are. I think these are good policy changes to make. And if those are agreed to, the change would be down the line, would also to have the chair of the Board of Assessors sign in on it as well, in addition to the chief assessor. And that would be the one additional signature that I think would want to go on to these, so that they're vested in the policy changes that are made, and now they're going to see them carried out.
Well, this is eye-opening, but this is wonderful. I myself personally, I think this is a wonderful idea to move forward with this. I think, we just need to get public input and see it, and have the select board time to think about it, and everyone else to have time to think about it. But I do like the idea of going to a board of assessors. We have things to work out, obviously, but I think if the flow of information can be quicker, and so that, Priya, to your point about it, we can answer questions on town floor, where in the past we weren't able to answer questions on town floor.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a move in the right direction. Does anyone in the Zoom have any questions for us, for Tony? Nope.
Tony, one other last thing, just for clarification,
Hey.
for people might ask, or watch it, or watching us, right? Like, you think it's outside of your purview as a FinCom to look into these, right?
Yes,
Like,
I think-
people are going to ask, why do you need another board, right?
Right.
So why can't the FinCom do it? So just want to make sure that gets
Yeah,
clear
it's
to
not a
folks.
FinCom responsibility to take on a
The-
board of assessor role, because you need specialised knowledge,
Yeah.
which is different, and it's you need to. I think you need to separate out all of these functions. I think that's where we've gone wrong. Actually, is having one person with all the keys.
Yeah.
And we need to have separation of those things, so we have a proper governance process.
Mike, you mentioned that we have a firm that goes out and does the assessing. Who verifies their work? Not pointing fingers, but who says they actually went out and did something? Would that be is that the assessor, or would that be the Board of Assessors?
So currently, it is the assessor. I think what would happen is that when all those inspection reports come back from, so Patriot, who is now referred to as Catalyst, they're the consultant that we use to do these. When those all come back, it would be the chief assessor that looks them over. I would assume that once, if there's a board of assessors, then the chief assessor would bring that to the board of assessors meeting and say, this is, all of these evaluations have been done, I've verified them, and, report that to the board, and then the board would, accept that.
So it really is the Board of Assessors overseeing the operation, the assessor just being one of the operational people?
Well, the assessor is a professional who actually has the expertise and manages the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And manages the consultant who does all the inspections.
Yeah.
And does the contract and decides where they have to go, and there's all sorts of nuance to that. Just talking to Jim this afternoon, there's a lot of stuff around how you have them do things. Do you want them to go out on a Saturday morning to get more chance of getting in the house to actually inspect?
That's right.
And you have to specify that. You want to do that?
Yeah.
Or go out in the evening, or whatever. How do you manage that process? I think there's a lot to that.
Okay.
That beyond my pay grade, but that's what you need, a professional assessor to actually be managing, and then you need the board of assessors to actually oversight, have oversight of that, and saying we're happy with the way it's being.
Correct. And that's kind of what I was saying, exactly.
Yeah.
Two big changes that would happen with a board of assessors is that the vote to either put more money into the overlay reserve or to take money out of the overlay reserve and put it back to free cash, that would then be done by the Board of Assessors on recommendation from the chief assessor. And the other thing would be abatements. So let's say they have a monthly meeting, the chief assessor would bring any proposed abatements. In other words, people have made an application to be abated on whatever it is. And then the assessor could bring that recommendation to the board, but the board is going to be the one who actually votes and decides, do they go along with the assessor, or do they have some other knowledge that they feel like they should vote for me? So it would solely rest on the board to make those decisions for both the overlay and the abatements.
All right, good.
I have one question.
Good.
And that would be, since you're going to be closing the warrant for the October town meeting later in this meeting, is this something that you want to bring forward in October to start that process?
I think so. I think we should. I'll ask the board. I think we should bring it forward, and bring it to the residents and let them make the decision as quickly as possible. I mean, I don't see a harm.
As long as the finance committee feels prepared
Yeah.
to, I mean, I assume you guys have voted on this and.
We've discussed it. I mean, I would say the sense of the finance committee meetings that they're all in favour of it. We've had no formal vote on it as such, because we think it's really a select board decision, actually.
Sure. We're informed
We still need
by
you
your
guys.
sense. There's,
Right.
it seems like there needs.
We'll either
yeah.
recommend or not recommend it.
Well, that's kind of my question. Who would present this? Who would present the?
So
I
it's
think
the
what
It's
he's
the
saying is there'd be the
So
select
It's a
board.
select
to present
board.
it.
It's a select board
Previous town
proposal.
So right, so you would, yeah, so
Be a
we,
warrant article,
yeah, so
yeah.
we would present it.
Yeah.
and
We
you
would vote. We would vote on it at that point, right? So if it's a warrant article, we'd vote on it. At that
And you,
point.
right, you would vote on it
Yeah.
and recommend it as well.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah.
If this is something that the select board seems to be in favor of this evening, I would recommend that you vote to do it this evening so we can bring it forward. And one of the main reasons is that before we bring on a new chief assessor, I think they should know what their governance is. You know, even if we don't have the people in place, appointed or elected, at least they know that they're gonna be moving into a governance structure where they're gonna be moving to a board. And I would suggest most communities have a 3-member board, and I think that's probably a good number, but you could decide on 5 if you'd rather
Yeah.
that.
So this was my next question was, is there a time sensitivity to the topic, why we might need it in October versus a future town meeting, whether it's dealing with a bump in collections or whether it's trying to hire somebody, and if it's trying to get someone to sign up for something, they know what it is, that's fine with me, but is there a reason to rush
I think
to
that's,
October and get it in
yeah.
before tonight?
In my mind, that's the one reason that you'd want to do it before then, is just so that when we recruit, we can tell, you know, when I was applying for this job, it was important to me to know that there was a 5-member board, not a 3-member board, because 5-member board is more stable. I think that anybody applying for the assessor job would want to know they are the board or they're going to be working with a board. I don't know much about assessing, but I think I'd rather work with a board. So
Yeah.
I think they would want to know that structure, even if the people aren't in place, they would want to know the town has decided on that structure that they're going to be moving into.
So with that, I think I would like to make a motion.
Hold on a
Go ahead,
second.
go ahead.
It says only discussion. We didn't have it in the agenda for a vote.
Well, so we can add it to discussion and action for the warrant articles. So that's when we would.
Oh,
Sure.
that's when, okay. And I don't know if Kristen's not here, one of the members is not here. Should we wait for her? Is that going to
Yeah.
delay?
My only thought is, if you're leaning to, and I shouldn't have said the word vote, so I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah.
But if you seem to be leaning that way,
Yeah.
we can at least put it in as a placeholder, and you can vote it in
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Okay, I think that'll.
Yeah,
That's fine with me.
That's fine.
That'll be better.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
because we can always take it out after it's in.
Yeah, so I think we should put it in as a placeholder
Yep.
and get all 5 members
That
to
works.
talk about it.
And of course, finalize the
Right, right, yeah.
text of the proposal itself.
Yeah.
You went very quickly over the slides with the
Yeah.
actual
Sorry. Yeah.
text,
Yeah.
But, so I guess we would, you know, the actual language would come, I guess, from Jim and,
I think the select board will need to work with Jim and
Yeah.
to advise you on what the language should be for the charter or whatever for the
okay,
for the board.
for the board.
Jim, Mike, and Sam.
And
Oh, wow.
there needs to be a process of recruiting
Yeah.
members of the board. So somehow get the word out in town that we're looking for volunteers for
Sure.
this. I've got one already lined up, so
Thank you, Tony.
Work on the other two, Tony.
All right, so that's fine. So, yeah, so we'll have it with that, and we'll let Kristen, who I'm assuming Kristen will be back in 2 weeks to join us, so we'll have her chime in on how she feels about it. And then we'll, as Wes said, we'll put a placeholder.
As far as people who might consider, you know, since there may be people watching this meeting or watching in the future, people who might consider either being appointed or running,
Yeah.
you know, for this, whichever way it goes. I've seen successful boards that are comprised of different types of people. I've seen people with real estate background, people with land use, civil engineers, appraisers, commercial appraisers, residential appraisers. So different concepts. So it doesn't have to be just one type of background. And I think as long as you have someone on there that has that type of knowledge, there could be other just interested residents who want to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that could be successful in a number of ways.
Okay.
And I think that one thing that if you want to get the board put together more quickly and not have to wait till next summer or so, you might want to think about appointed. Because elected, you're going to have to wait at least until your June election.
I think that's something we'd want to look at, what's the process of changing that, going from appointed to elected? And I understand what you're saying, quickly, to Sam's point, quickly, we could do appointed, but what would be the process to go to elected? So I think so. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we've covered that. Thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate it. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Nope. Tony, thank you very much. Appreciate you bringing it forward to us. The next item we have on is to the select board participation in the planning board's warrant articles for the special town meeting. So, Mike, want to open that up?
Yes. So typically, it's been the practice, at least as long as I've been here, that the select board doesn't vote or recommend on articles that are coming from another elected board.
Correct.
So library trustees or the planning board. And in discussing this with Kristen last week or the week before, she had indicated that this may be something you want to discuss because the two zoning articles that are coming up in the October town meeting have a little broader reach than some in the past. So the MBTA communities has a huge community-wide impact, as does whatever is taken up, whether it's an overlay or a across the districts, governmental or public. I think they're leaning towards a public safety by right or more restrictive. But those are the two.
Yep.
One that relates to the public safety or governmental use, and the other one for MBTA communities. So Kristen asked us to put this on the warrant so you can at least have a discussion. And I think that she also put this, this is also, you could take a vote on if you wanted, because it's posted that way.
Yeah.
I think these two are important. I think we need to, this will be the one time I think we can weigh in. I'm not, normally I wouldn't be for anything with planning board because they are an elected board themselves, but I think these two will have impact, as Mike mentioned,
So would we be, are you suggesting we would be presenting the articles?
No, we would be giving recommendations, right? Is that what it is, Mike?
That's what it's about. So these
Yeah.
are still,
Okay.
these are still planning board
Okay.
articles. They sponsor them, they present them.
But we
Yeah.
would give a recommendation, where in the past we've remained neutral on
We
the.
never gave any
Yeah.
recommendations
Okay, yeah.
usually.
And I don't have enough institutional knowledge beyond
Unless
3 years
my,
ago what the board did.
Has there
Okay,
been
so-
any times where we have?
Not many, but apparently Zoom is not allowing people to raise their hands, and Diana had something to say.
Did Diana?
Or if she would just like to be unmuted. Or ask
Diana, are you still there? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand, I apologize.
For the third one up.
No,
Third one
next.
down.
Yeah.
No.
Up
I
there,
don't-
yeah, we got you, Diana, go ahead.
I don't know why, but for some reason Zoom is not giving me an option to raise my hand, so.
Okay,
I-
so I apologize.
Mike, I texted to let somebody know that that's not happening. I may want to comment on this particular issue, but I just wanted to reinforce, I wanted to talk about the prior issue, just very quickly to let you know that I think that having a board of assessors is an absolutely great idea.
Okay.
I've been very, very concerned about the evaluations of this town, the assessments in this town for quite a while, and I haven't gotten very satisfactory answers from the prior assessors about their methodology. That honestly, the evaluations and the reevaluations have not been as complete as they should be. And even though the money that has been expended or has been appropriated, it should have been fully spent, because I can tell you, as a realtor, I look at some of the evaluations, the assessments, particularly for commercial properties, and I am quite frankly appalled at what our commercial properties owners are paying right now. I think it's an area that we really, and I would advise the Finance Committee to look at it very seriously. So I just wanted to reinforce that, and I would hope that you would do it in October, because remember, January 1st is coming up, and we may not get it in place by that time, but at least we'd have a good start. So
Great.
that's what I wanted to say.
Yep.
So I don't know how to let you know if I want to speak on this issue, because again, I don't have it. Maybe I'm not really dressed for a meeting, so I didn't want to raise my hand.
Yep.
But
Okay, no, yeah, that's great. Did you want to talk about the next article too, or, I mean, the next, as far as?
well, I want to hear what you guys have to say first. I mean, let me just say very quickly, I'm glad that Mike opened it the way that he did, because when I was on the select board, obviously it was a policy of the select board not to comment on these issues, so of the other elected boards. I never saw it happen, not all of the 11 years I've been in Boxborough. Now, maybe it happened prior to that.
Yeah.
But it is a concern to me that the board would make selective choices as to what it, what it comments on and what it doesn't comment on. I think that you need to have a policy and abide by that policy. That doesn't mean you can't give input during the process or whatever, but I do think that has been a prior policy, and I would urge you to take that continuation very seriously, so.
Got it. All right, thank you. I understand your point of view. Thank you. Go-
Let the board, if anybody else had any.
Does anyone else want to have any comments at this one? Because there's more people that look like they have their hands raised.
No, those
No.
are that's the muted microphone.
Oh, sorry, okay. We gotta get a bigger screen. Okay. Wes?
So I mean, Diana did make the point, but I don't recall opining on like planning board articles or those things, because at least in my perspective, they're a board independently elected, and so the finance committee has an obligation because like they're obligated to comment on everything that has a financial impact, whereas we are an elected board to effectively oversee the operation and stuff of this town, but everything under our purview. And so, while yes, this will have implications in a broad sense, I don't know if that kind of creeps into where our purview is.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm stuck. And
Help me with the status quo. Is it just a board policy not
Yes,
to weigh in?
yeah.
Is there a policy? I don't.
So
know.
if this isn't to me.
Sam, I don't think there's anything written. I think it's been accepted that the select board would not
So
comment.
we could decide to weigh in on these two,
Sure.
or one out of these two warrant articles.
Right.
And if we announce that we would be participating in warrant articles going forward, we could opt not to weigh in on any other ones going forward. I don't necessarily see this as a change in the policy. Either way, it's up to the select board's discretion whether or not to weigh
Yeah,
in.
right, exactly, and that was kind of what I believe Diana was saying, just the opposite of that, because I don't think there's ever been a written policy about what we comment on or not. When I was on the select board, it was always just, and I hate using the word, but it was just assumed that we would not comment on any planning board articles. I've never seen anything written. So, to Diana's comment that we change that is what you're saying, can we change it on any given basis? We could,
It seems to me it's not worth changing, because either way, it's our discretion.
Correct, it's our discretion.
And I would hope, and this is a little bit jumping the gun a little bit, but I would hope that the select board taking the opportunity to weigh in on a question would be articulated with a vote or some kind of writing to say why it implicated the select board.
Correct.
Just as in the opposite, opting out, I would want to say, this is why we didn't weigh in on this.
No, I agree,
So-
and to Wes's comment, or to the whole article, or the comment, or the whole position in general, these are two really big
Of course.
decisions that the town has to make. Again, the town is gonna vote on this, so I think the town, needs to hear how the select board feels about these. And there's, to Wes's point, there's gonna be normal, everyday, yearly planning board articles that we're not gonna give our comments on. It's just, it doesn't, it's not such a huge factor on the town. And these are my own personal comments, and I don't want to speak for the board. But I think these two do affect the operation of the town going forward.
And I would say we should articulate, if the board decides, and I don't know how I would necessarily
Yeah.
land on it, but if the board decides, hey, these are broad reaching, the select board really ought to make a town meeting recommendation, we should decide that on a case-by-case basis
I
and
agree.
not
Yeah.
change the policy of our participation in planning board
Yeah, I
warrant
would
articles
agree
going
with that.
forward writ large.
I mean, you can always find a reason to justify it.
Sure.
But I mean, like, to be honest, maybe I was not communicating effectively, but if you make a recommendation, I do plan to abstain because this is another elected board that residents elected, and I see it as an overstepping of
Yeah.
authority or jurisdiction because we do technically own the warrant, but the content of this article is purely a planning board.
And I'm not
function.
saying I disagree
Yeah,
with
no,
you.
that's fine, but I'm just saying, like, I just wanted to be clear, like, I will
Mm.
abstain if there is a recommendation made. And then I would put in there, like, I do not, we do not.
It almost makes me feel like if we were to ever weigh in on a planning board article, there should be two separate votes. Like a vote of whether to weigh in,
Oh,
and then a
and-
vote
and
of,
then, yeah.
and then a vote of how we would vote on it. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know if that's like cumbersome or unwieldy, but
So where will we land, whatever, but first I think, Mike, if you can help us like look and make sure that we don't have a policy in place that kind of says one thing. If that's the case, first we'll have to look into that and like make the necessary changes if we want to. That way we will go with what you said, Sam, like, I mean, maybe have like
take it
separate
case by
things.
case, right?
Yeah,
Like-
case by case,
Yeah.
yes, so.
So I'll go through and verify
then we
that.
can decide.
When I first came here, I read through all the town policies.
Yeah.
And I don't ever recall seeing one about
Right.
this, but I have heard it discussed again and again, which makes me think it's a practice.
Practice, okay.
Or a procedure that is done,
Yeah.
but not inked into a policy. But I will.
It's like past practice, kind of like
Right,
common
more
law
of a
marriage.
past-
Yes, right.
Yeah, more of a past practice, I would agree. And I will look to make sure we don't have or to verify whether we do or don't have
Just
a
to.
written policy on that.
Yeah, just
Right.
so that we have.
And I think that's, and I think, I think, Sam, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said there should be two votes. As far as, do we need the vote, do we want to comment on it? One. And then two, do we make and how do we vote on the comments, the recommendation?
Yeah, I'm not even, I'm sort of thinking out loud. I'm not necessarily proposing that, but if
Right.
we are going to break from tradition or norm or policy or whatever the case may be, there should be some special circumstance why. And by the way, it shouldn't be a big deal if select board members say this isn't appropriate, as Wes is saying.
Right.
You vote no on the first one and abstain on the second one, that's fine.
Right.
That's
And-
not a big deal.
And the only comment I'm going to make is, a comment is going to be made that I'm just concerned that if we don't make a comment, someone from the floor at town meeting is going to say, well, how does the select board feel? And they're going to hold our feet to the fire, saying, tell us how you feel. And I don't think we can give the answer, well, we don't comment on planning board articles. I think the residents are emotionally charged about these articles, and they want to know, well, how's the select board feel about this? And I think we can vote, we can say yes, we can say no, we can have a split vote. But I think the residents are going to ask, so, well, select board, how do you feel about this?
I mean, then you get up and go down to the microphone, because like this is a zoning article. They both are.
Right, and I hear you, Wes, and I agree with you that, you can go down to the microphone and speak as a resident, but, in reality, is anyone going to say, oh, that's not a select board member? They're going to know we're all select board
Well, I
members.
understand, but I'm just saying it's more of the principle of it, right? So the planning board doesn't get up and
I think
opine
they
on our
understand.
articles.
Okay. So what are we going to do? Go ahead.
I think this is a good discussion to begin with, and we can like all probably think about it a little bit more, because this is something that we haven't done I guess, in the past.
Yep.
And then maybe in our next meeting, we can decide how we want to do. I mean, my personal feeling is yes, we haven't done it in the past, but how many big things have we done as a town? So we are only giving recommendations. We are not saying,
Right.
I think at least,
Right.
like the pro, and like you said, there could be a split vote, which is okay, but I think just telling them where we stand.
Exactly.
You know.
That's my personal opinion, is I think I think the residents have a right to know where we stand, and that's it. And like I said, it can be a split vote. It can be 3-2, 4-1, 5-0, or 0-5, whatever. Like, good.
Yeah, so, well, I can't guide you on how you should vote, nor could I even tell you how I would vote if I was in your seat on this, because I don't know. The one thing I saw as being a little bit different about these two articles, other than your standard zoning articles that come up every year, is the MBTA housing zoning article is directly tied to the community's grant funding, and getting it or not in the future. And so I think that has an operational and a fiscal component to it that goes beyond typical zoning. Again, I don't know how I would vote if I was in your seat, but that's just something that occurs to me. And the other one, the public safety, the ability to build a fire station, it directly links to the operational needs of one of your operational departments. So it's a little different than your standard zoning. Again, don't know how I'd vote. I wouldn't want to be in your seat, but those are just thoughts off the top for me.
All right. I think we'll move this in 2 weeks when Kristen's back.
It doesn't, just to be clear, we don't need to decide
No.
the level of our participation before we close the warrant. We can always
Correct.
decide
You
to,
do not. Not
until
tonight.
it goes to print, we can decide what we want our expression to be in the warrant.
Yeah, if you thought you were going to make recommendations and votes, you'd probably want to do it in 2 weeks for your next meeting.
Yep.
Because you want to decide who's going to start writing those recommendations
Sure.
and stuff like that. Maybe it wouldn't have to be exactly by then, but it couldn't wait too long.
Right. And I mean, worst case scenario, we can put a placeholder in again and just and leave it as that. Well, no. Well, actually, it wouldn't be
They're
our.
warrant articles.
No, right. It wouldn't be our placeholder. It would be the planning board's ready.
Right.
Yeah, this is already a warrant article.
So sorry, yeah,
We-
sorry.
we
Right.
are only
Okay, yeah,
looking
that was
at-
my
So you
mistake.
don't have to decide anything tonight.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on. Mike, so we'll close the special town meeting warrant.
That's where we
No,
need to
because
put
you want
the
to add it, so I'll move to add a warrant article for the Board of Assessors.
Yeah, for the board of
Second.
assessors. Yep.
Second.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
And so I will work with Tony and with Jim, our interim assessor, in getting some draft language put into the, as a placeholder. And then we'll work on that over the next couple of weeks.
Great. So, can you second it?
Sam
Sam did?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Anyone abstain? That carries 4-0 as well. That's all it for that.
Now we can close after this?
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
now you can.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Priya. I move to close the special town meeting warrant effective August 11th, 2025.
Second.
Any other discussion about that? Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstained? Again, Stemple is aye as well, so that's 4-0. We'll move on to, let's see, old business. We're going to be talking about second-generation anticoagulant rodicides known as SGARs in the policy. Mike, you have some new information, I believe, for that.
So what I did following your last discussion 2 weeks ago at your meeting was that I did connect with Liz Markowitz from Conservation Commission and with Rita Grossman from the Boxborough Conservation Trust and with Sam Anderson, who has some expert knowledge in this area. And then we all went and did a little bit of work. I pulled some articles from some other towns that had done this, two in particular, the town of Arlington and the town of Newbury, and I thought that the one in Newbury seemed to strike the right balance for what we were looking for. And so I pulled their exact language, put it into a draft policy, Boxborough format, and then forwarded it to Sam, Rita, and Cindy, as well as Becky Harris. They looked at it, thought it was good to bring forward. That's what's in your packet. I believe that Sam had reached out to the town of Newbury and got some good information from them and how it's worked for them since they implemented that policy. And I think he has some thoughts he'd like to share, which he shared with me this afternoon, which seemed to make a lot of sense.
I do. There's a provision in the policy, and again, this is just for town-owned and managed land, where the Board of Health can issue basically an emergency use waiver. So this is, there's a situation where there's an acute infestation.
Rats.
Yeah. What the advocates in Newbury have found is that their select board policy has a waiver that is time unlimited and does not come with any requirements on the proponent, the town, the landowner. So what's happened is that the Board of Health has basically issued an open-ended waiver for the police station, and the police station is just going on using rodenticides at will. I looked at the legislation that is would phase out the use of rodenticides statewide, and what's contained in that legislation is an articulation of some type of standards for a landowner that needs to use them to deal with an acute infestation that is a threat to public health. So something like, it's in the sleeping quarters of the fire station and we need to really get rid of it. So I'm suggesting working with Mike and with Liz. Liz is here, I think. I hope.
Yep.
Yeah, she is.
And crafting language, and we can either vote on it tonight or see the final language and vote on it in 2 weeks. But that basically says, if the Board of Health were to grant the town a type of waiver to deal with an acute situation, it would be time limited and come with some requirements that the manager of the building, which could be the DPW or whoever, take other steps to ensure that the underlying problem is solved. So sealing up access holes, eliminating food sources, getting some trash cans that are rat proof, whatever the underlying problem would be, and then having to come back in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever we sort of decide that the time limit should be, if they want to keep using the rat poisons. So that is the feedback that we got from the town of Newbury, who did this policy, and then have wound up having trouble enforcing it on some of their town facilities. So I leave it to the board how you want to proceed with that. I do feel strongly that amendment should be sort of included in the town policy for our town facilities and town land, but whether you want to sort of vote on it today and check out the text later, or we can just vote on the text in 2 weeks once I get a chance to put pen to paper. But this feedback I just got on Friday of last week, so I wasn't, I haven't actually written it down yet.
Do you want to
And does Liz want to?
Liz,
Is Liz here?
Liz Markowitz, do you want to jump in and say anything?
I'm here.
Hi there. Welcome.
Hi. Oh, there I am. I'm just wondering, is there even a reason? I'm so glad, Sam, that you followed up with the Newbury to find out how how that really plays out in real life. I'm just wondering, do we need to have an exemption for an emergency basis? Isn't there other?
I would want to talk to
other options.
I'd want to talk to the Board of Health and to the DPW. Some towns have done. I will tell you, some towns have done this without any exceptions at all, and
Right.
some towns feel, there are times when you really need to deal with this in a there's an acute infestation and there's something drastic needs to be done, and then it's sort of indoors only for a certain amount of time with other measures taken. I'm sort of agnostic to it. I feel, I wouldn't want to necessarily say there are no circumstances ever categorically in which use of rat poison is appropriate. But
Well,
I
this is a certain
I will
type.
also
There's
say, I will also say that there are plenty of towns that have, I know of at least one in Maynard next door where they took care of it entirely, including at the high school where there's no exceptions for any use at all. So I kind of leave it to the board, but you know, as long as the exception is incredibly time limited
Yeah.
and use restricted, I'm fine with it. But yeah, but
Sorry.
yes, Liz, I agree with you.
Yeah, because the thing is, there are other options, other rodenticide options too. It's not like this is the only type of rat poison that would be available for use. So it's just a particularly virulent one.
Liz,
Yes.
Liz or Sam, in your research, has there been any situation where like the other options don't work? Like,
Not really.
Oh.
In most instances, in almost every instance, it's, you know, it's food source. You know, lock your trash cans,
Yeah,
close up
yeah.
your holes. They stay outside. Yeah. Liz, was there an answer for that?
Yeah, no, I agree. The other thing is, it does seem like, especially, and not so much in Boxborough, but like high density, with restaurants and sort of high density housing that have lots of overflowing, trash containers. I mean, even these, the escars, which are very lethal, I mean, they just, nothing really wipes them all out anyway, but just constant attention to things like stopping up holes, clamping down on garbage and making, cutting off food sources is really one of the key things that needs to be done. And it's more time consuming than just putting out rat poison, which is why I think a lot of control options seem to default to that. But there's lots of other things, lots of other ways to effectively manage rat infestations.
Because the only place I can think of where this might become an issue, and I'm sure it isn't, but maybe it is the town transfer station. I mean, that's the only thing where the town would come into play as far as rat infestation or trying to control the town-owned property. Where else that would be it?
Or the fire station or police station. I mean, people keep food in their desks here, I assume. There's a dumpster out back. You know, anywhere where there's a potential food source near or inside of a building.
We've had mice at town hall when I was working there, rats, but mice would be running around, so.
Okay. All right, I stand
Yeah.
corrected. Okay, all right.
Mike, do you think that we need an exception? Like, I mean, I would be more in favor of we don't need to have an exception, especially if there are other options.
So,
But
I mean, we can just approve it without the exception, and then if we need one, we can change the
change
policy
the
at that
policy
point.
at that point.
I'm fine with that. That we go without the exception, and then should the situation arise, then we make an
But
exception.
that's what he's saying,
Yeah.
Wes is saying it won't be, right?
Well, I mean, it's just the same as this meeting. We approve the policy or amend it, and it's no different, but we can just go with,
Right, but
having
the
it.
DPW comes to us, or
And
Board of
says,
Health
yeah.
comes to us and says, this is a big problem. we
Problem.
It
need-
takes
yeah.
all 5 seconds to add.
Because I just don't want it to be an easy route, right?
Yeah.
Like, we really have to look into other options first.
The one other item that I'll say, and I'm not sure it's articulated in the policy, but I think it's implied, is that, our town staff, we're not even certified to use the chemicals, but from time to time, especially if it's a contractor that's doing work and maybe under their subcontract, they're responsible for pest management, they might bring someone on that's not vetted by us or that does use the chemicals, and we would want to be sure that contractors were acting in consonant with the policy. I don't know if that's.
That would be operational for Mike.
It'd be operational for Mike, exactly.
But why give them the loophole if they?
Right. And I didn't
if they don't
look
need
closely at the text, but that's just another thing that has come up for towns in my mind that has done this.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of giving knowingly leaving a loophole.
We're either going
there.
to do it or we're not going to do it. And, I think of the guys that did this building 5 months ago. I'm sure they had something in their contract about pest management.
So,
I don't know who they used.
I guess I'll move to approve the policy without the exception.
Yeah, so yeah, then to move to adopt the town of Boxborough second SDA policy as presented.
With, or
With an amendment.
with the exception removed.
With the exception removed.
Oh, okay, they're already in the exceptions.
So-
Right
It's
In the
already
draft
in the draft
policy.
policy, so you
Okay.
want to remove
So-
that.
there. Okay, yeah, so go ahead,
Remove.
Wes, why don't you? Go ahead.
So I'll move to approve the second generation anticoagulant rodenticide policy with the exception removed.
Second. Any other discussion? Nope. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Anyone abstain? No. That passes as 4-0.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you,
Yay, thanks, everybody.
When we're moving on, we got reports and announcements, and as opposed to the way Kristen does it, I'm going to start down that end.
No reports for me.
Sam, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're
I'm
welcome.
good.
Me too.
Nope. Kristen. I'm sorry. Tricia.
Yeah. I think I would. We didn't have a fire station building committee meeting since our last
Correct.
select board meeting. However, we do have the planning board hearing, I think, going on as we speak right now, and we had one last Monday, and then potentially the 18th as well, I think, right? So I think they are discussing like multiple options. One is public safety by right, and then there's an overlay, and then overlay with exceptions, or like, and also they talked about even special permit, right? Those are the 4 things, Mike,
Correct.
was talked about in the planning board hearing. So I don't know how it's going on today. One other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, I know I've mentioned this probably a few board meetings ago. It's not in the agenda, so I'm not expecting a discussion or anything, but maybe it can come up in the future agenda item. I know couple of folks from town have approached and asked about, because I'm also in the fire station building committee, is like, do we need to look at another option for our firefighters in terms of their sleeping quarters? So I don't know if we need to look into like getting some trailers as a sleeping quarters as a stopgap measure, like something in between. So I don't know how we all feel about it, because this process in terms of like the fire station building, I don't know how long it's gonna take, where we are gonna land. But in the meantime, I think we need to be addressing this. So I think if we can have that as an agenda item, and in the meantime, Mike, if you can also look into that option, like, I mean, getting trailers to see if we can utilize that for.
And I'd like to have the chief comment on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Because one of the things they said was like, I mean, how long are you guys gonna let them
Right.
be in those situations? Maybe we need to like do something interim, so.
Okay.
Just wanted to bring that up, and
Anything else?
nothing.
I've got 3 the announcements I'd like to do. 2 are pretty general, then 1 I'd like to everybody to think about. 2 of the first 2 I brought up in the past, that the guardrails were installed over at the intersection of Flag Hill and Summer Road, that we had mentioned past, those guardrails were going to be installed. They have been installed at the intersection of Flag Hill and Summer Road. They were done sometime in the past week, so that's great news for everybody, especially in the wintertime. Second one, that the crosswalks on Mass Ave, we got word from the state DOT or DPW, whatever they're called, that they're going to start next Monday on putting that crosswalk light in. Next Monday, they're going to start the construction of putting that crosswalk light in, so that'll be up and running for when school starts. That will be the flashing lights like in West Acton, so that's going to stay. When people see construction, that's what that's all about, is getting the crosswalk lights there at that one.
And that'll be towards Town Hall, right? In between Town Hall and the.
The light will be at the far end of the fire station. So if you're heading from Harvard to Acton, it's really flat down there, and
Okay.
it's pretty much directly across from the front entrance of the school. It's
okay.
not the ideal situation, and as I mentioned in the past, we'd like to have it up in front of the police station, but that the state didn't State didn't have the funds right now because there'd be a lot of construction, because to put the new sidewalks in, their mandate is that it be ADA compliant, and that hill is not ADA compliant right now, as Wes knows quite
So
well.
this is more closer to the library, you
Yes,
mean?
correct,
Yeah.
exactly.
So just so that people will
Exactly.
understand where exactly it's gonna go.
So, yes, so children and adults would have to walk down the southbound side of Mass Ave and on the blue crosswalk in front of the fire station and push the button there. It's not, again, it's not the ideal situation, but at least they do have a light, because as I was told by numerous residents, when they stand at the crosswalks across from the police station, they stand in that crosswalk and nobody stops. And so we want to be able to at least get people to see these lights and hopefully stop them. The other one is, and this is an announcement, and I just want everybody to think about this, and I'm not asking for any discussion, we can talk about this later, as far as the select board and as residents. I was approached by 3 residents, and I'd like everybody to write to the select board, and I take this upon myself to write to the select board, and what their thoughts are about a special town meeting, or going forward, to have a ballot vote. Some of the people were, I've heard comments from people in town that they would not like that at all. This is Boxborough, everyone has a right to vote in public and with their hands and with their cards. Other people have said they didn't want to, and this is not an indication as a negative, they didn't want to feel intimidated by the way they voted. And so they asked that the select board consider that we make a motion on town floor to have a vote by ballot versus the way we've done it in the past, as far as saying aye, or raising your hand, raising your card, or standing count. That we do it by a ballot, piece of paper ballot. Just for history, I think Wes knows this, maybe not. We did this once before, and we actually did a paper ballot back when we did the school AB school regionalization, when we did the town meeting and we had a regionalization, a proposal for the town. We actually did that back then. I was on the select board at that time, so that's how I know we did it. We did the regionalization vote by paper ballot. So I'd like everyone to think about it, and if you would write to the select board with your comments, your thoughts about it, and I'd like the select board members to think about it as well, so at some future date we can have a discussion about it. That's all I have.
Okay, I have a number of announcements. The first is, as you know, we did have some mosquito samples test positive for West Nile virus. The state made our Board of Health aware. Our health agent contacted our office, so we started putting out notification. The next evening, part of the town was sprayed, our public fields, the school grounds, as well as the dozen or so streets that were named in that flyer that went around. So this is more of a reminder that we are at that time of year, like we were last year when we had another outbreak. We didn't have mosquitoes that tested positive last year, and this year we have not had a human case of West Nile virus or Triple E, but last year, I think it was just a little bit later than this, in Acton there was a human case of West Nile virus, and that's why we went on, a high alert status last year. So it's still at a low state right now, but just a reminder to people, if you're going outdoors from dusk to dawn, to take protective measures, use spray, clothing, and also consider, where you're going. If you're going into wooded areas near woodland, just take those protective measures and be safe. Yes, go ahead.
One moment. Dennis, for you to turn his camera off, I think there's a problem with the raising the hand. You may want to talk about the comment that Bob was talking about.
Oh, sorry. Dennis, we're going to unmute you. Dennis, do you want to comment?
He's good.
Is he unmuted?
We are unmuting you. Hold on, Dennis. Okay,
Sorry, Dennis.
Okay, it worked that time.
Yep, sorry, Dennis. I
Yeah,
didn't see, that's my, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I had the same struggle earlier. Well, the same struggle that Diana had earlier. There was no hand-raising option. Yeah, I unmuted and turned my video on while you were discussing the written ballot option of voting at town meeting. And it is allowed. It's a valid method of voting. I've never called for it. But if any member of town meeting, any voter in attendance, wanted to make a motion that we have a written ballot as the method of counting the votes, I would put that out to the floor for a vote. And if a majority of voters wanted it, we would then proceed in that fashion. You know, we've typically gone with basically raising of the cards, and that generally works unless it's close, and then we go to standing count.
Right.
And what we haven't done in many, many years, or perhaps not at all, I think I have some notes from John Fallon on the history of this going way, way back. Written ballot has not been done at town meeting. It was done for the regionalization vote that you referred to, but that was because it was a strict requirement of that regionalization agreement would be to have a written ballot vote at a town meeting. So that was the distinction there. It wasn't discretionary or an option, it was a requirement.
Thanks, Dennis. I didn't know that. I thought it was discretionary.
Dennis, hold on for a second. Mike,
Yeah.
would it be okay if I asked Dennis input about the recommendations for the planning board as a moderator, if he had any say? Will that be okay to ask him?
Sure, you can do it.
Sure.
Dennis?
Do you have a,
Opinion?
any opinion on, like?
Oh, on your previous topic?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I agree with the notion that in general that the voters at town meeting expect to hear from the select board, because our select board has made recommendations on nearly every article before town meeting for as long as anybody can remember. And I think it's an expectation. I believe it's written into town meeting time, the book that governs our town meeting, that select board makes recommendations. I don't know if it's a direct order or strict requirement. I could maybe check the exact wording that's in there. And other boards and committees can make recommendations if they have a stake or a direct interest in an article. We see that on several articles every year where it's not just the select board and or finance committee commenting. It may be a different board or committee commenting on some proposed article that, you know, has some interest to them or some perhaps impact on their actual mission. So again, the expectation is the select board has a great interest in almost every single article at town meeting. And I think it is the select board's discretion to decide whether they want to comment or not. I mean, there may be some cases where you want to be neutral for whatever reason, or you simply declare you've got no stake or interest in the article, therefore you won't comment on it.
Thank you.
I'll look at the town meeting time in a little more detail on that matter. Anything that's actually in the so-called rule book that we follow.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Dennis?
No, that was it. I'll just follow up, or if Kelly's listening on here, Mike's here. I appreciate seeing the list of articles that are now in the special town meeting warrant, or will be, or at least placeholders that you have as of now. Thanks.
Again, I apologize, Dennis. We didn't see your hand. I apologize. That's
Yeah,
all.
no, the hand thing, I'm not seeing the option unless I'm missing something, but I go between Zoom and Teams all the time, but I'm like, where's the hand raise thing? It's either disabled or out of sight, or it's quite possible it's 100% user error on my part. But,
No, it's on us. We've
I don't have it either, so I'm gonna work with.
Yeah, we
Okay.
determined it's on our end that we've got a snafu tonight that we'll get it fixed for our next meeting.
It may be, may even be a Zoom thing, because I don't think we have control of doing that, but we'll look into it and find out for the next meeting what that was about. So if Dennis is still on there, I am about to read what the placeholder articles are for October town meeting.
Oh,
and then
there you go, Dennis.
and then I will send them out to the finance committee, the select board, and to you, Dennis. So There's an amendment for the zoning bylaw to comply with the MBTA Communities Act. And then there's going to be possibly up to 3 municipal use or public safety use articles from the planning board for zoning. So we've put 3 placeholders in there, just labeled 1, 2, and 3, because we don't know what their language is going to be yet. There's going to be a planning board amendment of the stone wall general bylaw. There are going to be at least a couple, maybe, at least several sense of the meeting votes. One that's going to involve a question about green construction of the fire station, and then some others about affordability options for the fire station. So there could be up to 4 sense of the meeting votes. Those are non-binding votes to see where voters are, that will help to guide the fire station building committee. And then there's going to be a town bylaw vote that will be to change, in other words, give some flexibility to when annual town meeting is scheduled for next year, because right now the bylaw says it'll be the second week in May, and we know when, and that's for town meeting and town elections. So they expect that. There's a placeholder in for late invoices, although we don't have any at this point, and we hope we don't have any. And I've also added to the list the Board of Assessors vote as a placeholder. So that's what we've got right now.
Good.
I would like to read an announcement that I read to you last week, and it's just an announcement for August 17th, that between 8:30 a.m. and 10 a.m., the American Diabetes Association is again doing the Tour de Cure bicycle ride through Boxborough, and they're not going to be closing any roads, but they're just asking that people use caution. And the roads that are going to be used for the cyclists for that event are Summer Street, Flag Hill Road, Richardson Road, Stowe Road, Chester Road, Burroughs Road, Old Harvard Road, and Eldridge Street. And one last announcement that I have is that our intern that was working with administration this summer has finished her work. Her name is Harika Gotetti. She's an Acton Boxborough High School graduate who lives in Acton. She's actually moving back to college this week. She's an economics major at University of Connecticut, and she did terrific work looking at 2 phases of study throughout the summer. One was to look at what is the cost of our services delivered for ones that we collect revenues for against what was collected in revenue, so cost versus revenues collected. And the other thing, the other phase that she did was comparing Boxborough against 20 comparable communities, and what are those communities charging versus what is Boxborough charging across all departments and everything where we collect fees. So she's collected an enormous amount of data, and I'm going to be working over the next month to put that into a report that I'll send to the select board and the finance committee. And I can already see in pouring through the data today that I'm going to have some recommendations to departments on areas where they might consider raising our fees, because they haven't been touched. If you haven't touched those in several years, especially over 5 years, and I can tell you there's areas that we haven't, that we've gotten behind, you know, because we know that wages go up and materials go up, and so if our fees that we charge don't go up, then we're getting behind in what it costs. So expect that in sometime in September. And that's all I have for announcements this evening.
Great, thank you, Mike, appreciate that. The next item we have on the agenda is to approve the select board minutes from July 28th. Did everyone have a chance to look at them? Good, I will then make a motion. I move to approve the minutes of July 29th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion? Kelly? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone say? I'm sorry?
Abstain.
Abstain, yes. 1, 3 positive, 0 negative, and 1 abstention for the minutes of.
Yay, 3 yays.
I'll move to adjourn.
And so next one is, yes, hold
One
on.
second. Could we have maybe Dennis try if on the bottom of the screen where it has the
Dennis?
the heart button, if he wouldn't mind trying to click that and see if under this option there is a raised hand. Does he have that option?
Dennis, do you see that?
Oh, so Zoom has changed the
it may have
display
updated.
options.
I think Dennis is also muted.
Yeah.
Oh,
he
there it
did
is, his hand is
There,
up
he's
now.
got it. Okay.
Okay, so it looks like it updated. We don't know, or sorry for that.
So it's a Zoom update.
It was an update. but
Okay.
We weren't made aware of it.
So does everybody have to update their Zooms, or is that for us?
I think they've done
I
it.
just think Zoom in general updated it.
But if I come in through Zoom, do I have to get that too?
You will probably get it.
Do
Like,
they-
we just
everyone
didn't,
seems to
people
see-
probably
We
didn't
just didn't know-
know
we
that
didn't know.
that's where you go to raise
Oh, it's
your
the
hand.
heart.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It
see.
used to be the hand, used to be.
Right,
at the
right, right,
bottom,
right.
And now it looks like there's a heart, which.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know what to do with that. Like, I'll be right back. Like, what does that mean?
Yep, so we have IT. Okay, cool.
All right.
Wes, go ahead.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that. Any other discussion? None. See you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, that is 4-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Here's for some signatures.
And we have signatures.